Okay, so discipline. What is it? We know it's a good thing, and we know to accomplish the goals we set for ourselves, we need it, and we all know people who seem to have an abundance of it, and if we're honest, we've all been at a point in our life where we could have used some but seem to lack it. But, for as much as discipline is discussed, it's seldom defined. Baumeister and his associates back in 1998 published an experiment in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology, and in this experiment they brought a group of college students into a room for a food appreciation experiment, and they had this big table filled with delicious, piping hot, freshly baked chocolate chip cookies. Are you hungry yet? And an array of chocolate flavored sweets that seemingly were quite delicious. And on the table they also had some radishes, which seems completely random. I mean, these radishes, like Bugs Bunny would balk at eating that. And they broke up these college students into two groups. And they basically told one of the college students groups that they could eat as much chocolate chip cookies and chocolate sweets as they wanted, but they weren't allowed to touch the radishes, which you can imagine was an easy sell. High degree of compliance, no issue there. But the other group of students, they were told that although they could partake in the radishes, they were not allowed to touch any of the sweets or any of the chocolate chip cookies. Yeah, that group was kind of pissed off. So they had to execute all this discipline in the presence of their fellow students who are allowed to just eat whatever amount of chocolate chip cookies and sweets they wanted. At the end of this phase of the experiment, they stopped the kids from eating and said, look, tomorrow we'll contact you and we're going to ask you specific questions about your experience with the distinctive flavors of whatever food group you were broken into. But since you're here already, would you help us with another study? This study, we're trying to measure the problem-solving ability of students in your age group. Now, what the researchers didn't tell the students is the problems that they were being given to solve were unsolvable. These researchers seem a bit cruel. And here's what's interesting. The group of students that did not have to exercise any discipline whatsoever stuck with their problems for about 19 minutes on average. That's quite a long period of time for an unsolvable problem, don't you think? But here's what was particularly interesting about this experiment. The group of students that had to exercise a high degree of discipline, not touching any of the sweets in the presence of their fellow classmates who were right in front of them, they only stuck with the problem for about 8 minutes on average. That's less than half the time. Now think about the ramifications of that. If that was the daily capacity of these two groups of students compounded over the course of their entire life, pretty substantial, right? So here was the researcher's point. Discipline is not a character trait. It's not a moral attribute. It is the ability of the part of your brain right behind your forehead, the prefrontal lobes, to utilize glucose to help you engage in the self-regulation of behaviors. That's what discipline basically is, and we all have it in an inexhaustible supply. So the next time after work you don't make it to the gym like you planned to, there's nothing wrong with you. It's not that you're a failure or you lack discipline or you lack character. What it could have been is that you ate lunch early in the day, so you were kind of hungry, and then you went into meetings or situations within your work where you had to make a lot of decisions or sustain concentration, and therefore you depleted, kind of like a fuel tank in your car on a long road trip, you depleted your reserve discipline energy and you didn't have anything left. So think about it that way. So what do we do about it? Well, there's a couple of things. One is timing. Try to take things where you struggle to exercise discipline at a certain time in the day and move it to a time in the day where you didn't have to utilize a lot of discipline before you engaged in that activity. Maybe exercise during your lunch break, or maybe exercise first thing in the morning if that's the issue for you. Or maybe if you're going to be in a meeting or in a sales call or engaged in learning and development and you're going to use up a lot of your discipline reserve, pack in a little plastic bag something like almonds and berries, blueberries, a healthy snack to kind of replenish your energy reserves. Create a support group. Tell people what you intend to do. If you're going to go to the gym and you can meet someone there, do that, because that allows us to tether our commitment to someone else, which strengthens our resolve. And discipline, like anything else, can be developed over time with dedicated practice and commitment. So start off small in your commitments and expand them over time. And what happens to that reserve of discipline is it gets deeper and deeper and deeper, and you get better and better and better at doing the things that you set out to do in the first place.